Welcome to Tossin the Pigskin. I'm your host, Nate Smith. It's that time again, folks. After a single year, it comes around, and it just might get sweeter every single time. That's right, we have Super Bowl Sunday. This Sunday, the Patriots and the Eagles are squaring off for the biggest trophy in all of the land. We will get into all of that and much more. Here we go! I'm joined alongside Joseph Caulo and Cristian Egurbide. Guys, obviously, the biggest game of the year. Every February it comes around. What a spectacle it always is. So we'll get right into it with the major keys we're going to talk about. Number one for me, I would say, is the play of Nick Foles. He's been absolutely phenomenal throughout the playoffs. Even against the Falcons in the earlier rounds, you know, he didn't exactly have a great stat line that game, but enough to get the Eagles the win. Phenomenal against the Vikings. Joe, I'll start with you. Do you think he has it in him to repeat his success that he had against the Vikings?
I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, you can't just roll out of bed and get a 146 QBR rating, I think is what he had against the Vikings. So I don't expect him to do that. But I think the main thing in these big games is minimize mistakes. I think if the Eagles were to pick the game how they wanted to go tempo-wise, they wanted to be maybe a little low scoring. So I think for the most part, if Foles can just take care of the ball and get some short completions and whatnot, I think that's kind of more of the game plan as opposed to let's go have Foles go out there and throw for another 350. I just don't think that's going to happen in the big game.
Yeah. Cristian, what do you think?
Well, I think this game's going to be interesting because against the Patriots, you know, the Eagles have a great defense, but the Pats are going to get their points regardless. You know, I think the Patriots will still put up 21, 24 points regardless of how good the Eagles defense plays. So it's up to Nick Foles to be that X factor and make those few plays that are going to push the Eagles over the edge. If you look at what the Jaguars did against the Pats and had success with, they were controlling the time of possession a lot against the Patriots. And that's what you need to do to beat them. I think the time of possession was like 30 to 15 minutes in that game. If the Eagles can do that and control the ball and Nick Foles can make one or two big plays, I think they have a chance to win.
Yeah, you guys both bring up interesting points. I do agree that Nick Foles probably will not go out and throw for 352 and no picks like he did against Minnesota, which was shocking because, I mean, Minnesota, best defensive football all year long.
I mean, they've shut down the Saints. They shut down a lot of teams throughout the
Saints
year.
for, I mean, pretty much near three quarters. Drew Brees obviously got to it at the end there, but yeah. So I just think it's interesting because you give Bill Belichick and that Patriots coaching staff, Matt Patricia, D coordinator, you give them 2 weeks to prepare. I just feel like compared to pretty much every other staff in the league, they just give you that slight edge. And even though early on in the season the Patriots struggled defensively, they actually did. They gave up a lot of points their first 4 or 5 games. But if you pay attention, they've really been honing in on their details, really closing in on their mistakes. And, you know, against Jacksonville, they were pretty shut down in the second half. I don't think they allowed any points in the fourth quarter of that game. What's interesting to me is you look at that Eagles defense, you look at the Jacksonville defense. I would say they're pretty similar. They both have solid secondaries, both have a great pass rush. And as you mentioned, the Pats still put up 24 on them. Obviously, that's a little different because they're at home in the comfort of Foxborough. But, Cray, I'll ask you, from an offensive perspective from the Patriots, do you think the game plan is similar to what we saw against Jacksonville?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're going to try to do is just minimize mistakes because what'll really hurt you against the Eagles is if, you know, you start making turnovers, that defense gets riled up because they're a very, I'd say, energetic defense. Watching them in that game against the Vikings, after that first pick six they got, where they tied the game 7-7, even though the game was tied, it felt like they had the edge because they were just so energetic. They started running around, making plays on defense. So I think you can't give them that opportunity to, you know, make a bad play where now they're all riled up, they're feeling like they own the game because there's a lot of dogs on that defense, Malcolm Jenkins and those guys who will, you know, get energetic.
Well, another thing about it, you just said Malcolm Jenkins. He's one of the few players on the Eagles that's actually played in a Super Bowl. Him, of course, and Garrett Blunt has. I think there's only a total of like 4 or 5 players in their entire roster. Well, the Patriots, almost all 52 guys on that roster have played in the Super Bowl, whether it was last year or a few years before that with the Seahawks. So I think when you're inexperienced in the big game, it's dangerous if you give them a lot of momentum early, and that's definitely what Philly's going to try to do.
Yeah, that's another interesting point because they forced 3 turnovers against that Minnesota offense in the NFC Championship game, and the Pats aren't really known to turn the ball over much at all, especially with Brady and those guys. We'll see if Dion Lewis and the other running backs can, you know, keep a good handle on it and not fumble. But so that brings us to my next point. Talk about the defenses. We just touched on the Eagles' defense. Joe, I'll ask you about the Pats' defense now. I mean, we talked about Nick Foles. We don't expect him to throw for 350. What do you think the Pats defense is looking to do going into this game?
Well, I think if you can, I think they're expecting Philly to kind of run and maybe slow the pace down. One of the things is you got to know when you got Tom Brady as a quarterback, the other team's going to try to say, we don't want Tom Brady to have the ball.
Right.
So I think they're going to try to win the time of possession. I would say they maybe stack the box, but we'll see. Alshon Jeffrey, it'll be interesting. Maybe he can get some one-on-ones, and maybe they do actually try to maybe run a little play action and go deep on him. The Patriots, more so than most teams, and Belichick, this is just his style. He trusts his guys man-to-man. There's not a lot of zones. Sometimes when it's a big-time play or it's late in the game, they trust man-to-man and the rush to get after him. So, but that also leaves, the tendency maybe for a big game-breaking play. But I don't know. At the end of the day, you got to trust Belichick and Patricia getting 2 weeks. They'll have them ready to go. I think this is trending towards a low-scoring game for sure.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I feel like when two solid defenses match up, everyone always says, okay, here we go, another low-scoring game. And then sometimes it ends up being 30-30. So I just think with the Super Bowl, there's just obviously football is an unpredictable game as it is, but I just feel like the Super Bowl is even that much more so. You got 2 weeks, you might see different looks, stuff possibly be thrown in that you haven't even seen all season. But that being said, I expect each team to stick to their roots. Philly's going to try to run the ball, as you mentioned. I assume they'll try to slow the game down. Craig, for the Pats side of things, we're used to seeing Brady go out and throw it 50 times, especially in playoff games.
Yeah.
I mean, they really haven't had a true running game in what seems like close to 10 years. Do we see something similar in this game, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Patriots, you'd like to see that. You'd like to see Brady get out there early, start throwing the ball around, get into a groove, and not necessarily, throwing these deep passes all over the place. Maybe just little dunk and throws. I mean, we know how the Patriots like to do it. Little screens, little short passes to Amendola, little pick plays that they're so good at. So I think if you can get Brady out there, get him into a groove, go down and get points early, because that's one thing the Patriots in past Super Bowls have not been very good at, is scoring early. They've come out a little flat these last past Super Bowls, haven't been able to score on their first few drives. So I think if they can get out and score early, it might take the Eagles off guard. They might not be able to respond.
Yeah, that is interesting because last year, obviously against the Falcons, they got down early quick. I mean, going into the third, it was 28-3.
It's shocking when you look back. They were they were showing a replay the other day, it's right before the half, and it's 21-0.
Yeah.
And the Pats are just trying to get a field goal, make it 21-3 , and obviously we know what happened. Not too long
and I
after
feel
that.
like the Patriots are the kind of team where if it was reversed and they get that lead switched, maybe this Sunday, I mean the Eagles got no shot. I think if it gets to 14 or more points deficit by the time the first half's over, I think they're toast.
Eagles are not built to come back.
No.
I think, and they know that. They know that you're not going to come back on Tom Brady. If Philly's going to win, they're going to have the lead most of the game, I would say.
I would agree. All right, Craig, here we go. Getting down to it. Who wins, and maybe a score prediction if you got one?
All right. Well, I think the New England Patriots are going to win this game. I think Brady's going to get his 6th Super Bowl ring. And
that just sounds insane to hear out loud.
Absolutely.
It's so possible that it just doesn't even make sense.
And I think the score will probably be, I'd like to say it'll probably be around the AFC Championship score, 24-20.
Okay.
I might say maybe something more like 28-21 or something like that. But what I really love about the Patriots defense, you mentioned they've been playing better this second half of the season. They bend but don't break a lot of the time, And you look at the Jacksonville game, Jacksonville had 20 points. That's 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. If those 2 field goals are touchdowns, it's 28-24. So it could be a win for them. Yeah. But so that's what I think is the key for the Patriots. Don't let the Eagles get touchdowns when they get in the red zone. They can kick field goals all day long because Brady, most of the time when he gets in the red zone, he's getting touchdowns.
Listen, if it's a 7-point game and there's less than 2 minutes left, I don't think there's a single person watching on TV or on that field that's not going to think Tom Brady's going to go win the game.
Of course.
I mean, that's just how it is.
The one other thing I was interested to see is Jacksonville in the second half coming in at the lead. Right before halftime, I think there's about 55 seconds, 2 timeouts. They took a lead.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see if the Eagles somehow come up with which is possible, if they get out of the first half with a lead, whether that be by single digits or whatever it may be. I wonder if they look at that film and they say, okay, Jacksonville had a lead against this team, and they went super conservative in the second half.
Atlanta went super conservative the year before.
So, you'd like to think teams would learn from that, but
and the thing about that is that Jacksonville was actually receiving the second half kickoff as well.
Yeah.
So in that situation, the Patriots, if you watch them historically, they always try to do that. If they're getting the ball first, second half, they always try to get a score before they go into the second half and then come out with the ball. It's kind of a double whammy. You get two scoring drives.
Exactly.
And you could just see the Jaguars, they were happy just to have a 4-point lead. They kind of needed out, and that's not the mindset you really need if you're going to beat the Patriots.
It's interesting because, the Eagles are kind of a young team like the Jaguars too, and especially with Nick Foles' inexperience, it'll be interesting to see what kind of game style they adapt. But I agree, I don't think conservative's the way to go. All right, Joe, who do you think wins this game and why?
I'm going low scoring. I think this is going to be maybe more similar to the Super Bowl against the Giants. I'm talking about the big upset one, the one in 2008.
First one or second one?
The first one.
17-14.
The 17-14. I really think it is. These are just two really talented coaching staffs. I think they will be ready, and Tom Brady's to go. The difference is, to me, I think this one stat in particular, if Brady gets sacked and he gets hit, let's say maybe more than 4 or 5 times, or he's got pressure in his face, I think that determines this game. So Fletcher Cox and Barnett and that talented defense, they have some dogs on that defense. If they can get after Brady, I think that'll be the difference. I don't know. I just got a feeling. I've picked against Brady so many times, and I've regretted it so many times, especially in big games. But I'm not going to switch up the MO now. I think the Eagles, they'd eke this one out, a 17-14 type game, maybe a 20 to 17, something in that neighborhood. I think if a team gets to 20, they'll win the game. Yeah.
All right.
So that'll be that's my prediction.
I like it. Personally, I got to go with the Patriots. I agree with you. I do think a low-scoring game benefits them because if you're in a defensive battle, they clearly have the edge defensively, regardless of, obviously roster-wise, but schematics will probably end up evening that out with whatever Belichick's got cooked up for the Super Bowl. I like the Patriots in this one. I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, are predicting to be a low-scoring game. I think actually the Pats get to 30 points, believe it or not. I think this game's around 30 to 20 in favor of the Pats. I think we see a low first scoring half. Teams trying to feel each other out, and I honestly think Brady goes in at halftime, figures out what he's seeing. As you mentioned, though, pressure is going to be a big key in this one. It's shown in the past that when teams beat Brady, which is very few and far between, but when they do, they hit him, they're able to sack him. And Jacksonville almost had enough. They were getting to him a little bit, but, he's got that quick release. Patriots run a lot of quick routes, a quick offense, especially when they start running that hurry up. Teams get tired. I'm used to playing at that pace. So I like the Patriots around 30 to 20, 30 to 21. All righty, thanks for joining us, folks. Alongside Joseph Caulo and Cristian Egurbide, I'm Nate Smith. Super Bowl is this Sunday. Hope you're watching.